What do you do when a sign on a door is not just a sign, but a declaration of war against your very existence? What happens when the most dangerous man on the planet decides to answer that declaration not with his fists, but with his presence? The town is a small one, a place forgotten by the highways, a wrinkle on the map you only find if you are well and truly lost. It smells of damp earth after a rain, of pine needles and old industry. The buildings huddle close together, their brick facades weathered by a century of sun and snow, their windows like tired, watching eyes. It is the kind of place where history is not a subject in a book, but a weight in the air, a presence you feel in the cracks of the sidewalk and the silence between neighbors. Here, tradition is an anchor. For some, it is a source of comfort, a steadying force in a changing world. For others, it is a chain. In the center of this town, on its sleepy main street, sits a diner. It is not famous, it is not celebrated, but it is known. It is known for one thing above all else. Hanging in the window, not printed on cheap paper but painted on a heavy wooden plaque, are 4 words. They are carved with a confident, steady hand, varnished against the weather, meant to last. Black's not welcome. The sign is as much a part of the diner as the worn linoleum floor and the smell of burnt coffee. It has hung there for decades, a relic of a bygone era that refuses to be bygone. It is a monument to a stubborn, curdled pride. The man who owns the diner put it there. Or rather, his father did, and his father's father before him. It is an inheritance, a legacy of hate passed down like a family watch. This is the setting, a quiet town, a loud sign, a challenge left unanswered for generations. But today is different. The air is thick with a strange electricity. A rumor has been moving through the town, a whisper passed over telephone lines and backyard fences, a current of disbelief and nervous excitement. Something is coming. The sun hangs low in the afternoon sky, casting long shadows that stretch like grasping fingers across the street. The diner is mostly empty. A few old-timers nurse their cups, their conversation stilted, their eyes drifting again and again to the door. The waitress nervously wipes down an already clean counter. Every tick of the clock on the wall sounds like a hammer blow. This is not just another Tuesday. This is the day the legend arrives. A challenge that will either become folklore or be buried and forgotten. A moment that will test the foundations of this town and of the man who guards its ugliest tradition. The quiet is about to break. He is the heavyweight champion of the world. This is not just a title. It is a descriptor of his physical and metaphysical place on the planet. He is a force of nature, condensed into a 5'10" frame. A man built of dense, explosive muscle, with a neck as thick as a small tree trunk. His record is a litany of violence, a collection of brutal, decisive victories that often end in the first round. He does not just defeat his opponents, he dismantles them. He is a practitioner of what he calls the hurt business. They say his power is otherworldly. Men who have trained him, men who have faced him, they all speak of it with a kind of hushed awe. It is not just strength, it is speed. It is a primal, concussive force that travels from the ground, up through his coiled body, and explodes from his fists with terrifying finality. The sound of his punches, they say, is different. Not the pop of a leather glove on a bag, but a deep, wet thud. The sound of air and tissue and will being violently displaced. He is a man who has weaponized his own body to an almost unbelievable degree, but that is not the whole of him. Beyond the myth of the monster, beyond the highlight reels of knockouts, there is a philosopher, a student of history, a man with a quiet, surprisingly gentle voice who speaks in intricate metaphors about war, fear, and the nature of the human heart. He reads voraciously. He studies the great generals, the conquerors, the thinkers. He understands that the greatest battles are not fought in a ring under bright lights. They are fought in the quiet, shadowed spaces of the human soul. He is a paradox, a destroyer with the mind of a poet, a warrior who studies peace. He is the man who is coming to the diner. Across town, there is another man, the owner of the diner. He is not a champion of anything. He is a man of medium height and medium build, with a face that seems perpetually soured, as if he has just bitten into a lemon. His hands are thick and calloused from a life of working the grill and fixing broken equipment. He is not a monster, not in the way the boxer is a monster. He is something far more common. He is a man poisoned by an idea. The idea was given to him by his father, who received it from his. It is the idea that his worth is defined by the exclusion of others, that his small kingdom, this humble diner, is made significant not by the quality of its food or the warmth of its service, but by the people it keeps out. The sign on his door is the cornerstone of his identity. He defends it with a tired, reflexive anger. When outsiders question it, he sees it as an attack on his family, his heritage, his very being. He does not see the hate in the words. He sees tradition. He sees a line drawn in the sand, and he is the proud guardian of that line. His world is small. It is the diner. It is the town. It is the faces of the same few customers every day. His views have never been seriously challenged, not by anyone who mattered in his small universe. The sign has always been there. He has always been there, and that, to him, is the natural order of things. He is a man standing on a very small hill, believing it to be a mountain, and he has no idea that a tectonic plate is about to shift beneath his feet. It started, as these things often do, with a boast. It was not a boast made by the boxer. He rarely boasted outside the context of promoting a fight. It was a boast made on his behalf, a casual remark that took on a life of its own. He had been training in a remote, mountainous region not far from the small town, a camp set up far from the distractions of the city, a place of monastic discipline. Just him, his trainers, and the thin, cold air. A journalist had come to do a story, a profile piece on the champion's Spartan lifestyle. During the interview, one of the boxer's sparring partners, a young, eager fighter, was talking about the champion's character. He had said, "He's the most real man I know. He's afraid of nothing." He'd walk into the lion's den for a principle. The journalist, smelling a better angle than just another training story, pressed him. "A lion's den? What do you mean?" The sparring partner, caught up in his own rhetoric, had gestured vaguely in the direction of the nearby towns. "I mean anywhere, any place. There are places around here, old-fashioned places. Places that wouldn't be too friendly. He'd go." The journalist was a professional. He knew the local lore. He knew about the diner. He knew about the sign. "There's a restaurant," the journalist said, his voice casual, baiting the hook. "Not 20 miles from here. Has a sign on the door. I'm sure you can guess what it says." The sparring partner's boastful tone faltered. That was specific. That was real. But the boxer, who had been quietly stretching in the corner, overheard the exchange. He stopped. He turned. He looked at the journalist. He had not said a word, but his eyes had narrowed, just for a second. A flicker of something ancient and deep. Not anger, contemplation. The journalist saw it. He knew he had his story. The article was published a week later. It was a well-written piece, full of atmosphere about the training camp, the discipline, the impending fight. But buried in the middle was a single, explosive paragraph. It described the champion's quiet intensity. It mentioned the sparring partner's boast, and it named the town and the diner and the sign. The paragraph ended with a question, posed not to the boxer, but to the world at large. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable prejudice? The challenge was no longer a hypothetical. It was now printed in black and white, read by hundreds of thousands of people. It was a public dare. The challenge was defined. It was not a challenge to a fight. It was not a challenge for money or for a title. It was a challenge to the boxer's very essence. The sparring partner had called him the most real man. The journalist had put that claim to the test. Could a man who conquered other men in the ring conquer a simple sign on a door? Could the philosophy he so often spoke of, the ideas of overcoming fear, of facing down demons, survive contact with this mundane, stubborn, and deeply American form of hatred? The challenge was simple. Walk into that diner. That was it. Just walk in. What happened next would be up to the man with the sour face and the inherited sign. For the boxer, the stakes were immense, though not in the way most people understood. His reputation was not at risk. He was the champion. Losing a street fight to a diner owner, or being refused service, would not diminish his status in the ring. His career was secure. His money was made. The stakes were internal. They were philosophical. For years, he had spoken about fear. He had said that the only thing he was ever truly afraid of was the weakness within himself. He had built a persona, a philosophy, around the idea of absolute self-mastery. To be a true master, one had to master not only the body, but the spirit. And the spirit's greatest enemy was fear. To ignore the sign, to drive past the diner and pretend it did not exist, would be an act of fear. It would be an admission that his philosophy had a blind spot, an admission that there was a force his will could not bend. It would make him a liar in his own eyes. For the owner, the stakes were, in their own way, just as high. His entire identity was tied to that sign. It was the flag of his small, bitter country. To have it defied, to have his authority publicly flouted, would be a profound humiliation. In his mind, it would be the collapse of the world order as he knew it. He had his pride, the stubborn, brittle pride of a man who knows he is on the wrong side of history, but is too deep in to turn back. He had his reputation in the town as a man who did not bend, a hard man, an inheritor of a legacy. What would he do if the living embodiment of everything his sign was meant to repel walked through his door? There was no negotiation. The boxer did not send an emissary. He did not make a phone call. The terms of the encounter were not discussed. The terms were written on the wooden plaque in the diner window. The terms were written in the boxer's DNA. The challenge was existential. No rules were needed. And so, the narrative returns to the present, to the long black car gliding silently down the main street of the forgotten town. Inside the car, the air is heavy. The boxer sits in the back seat, flanked by two of his team members, not bodyguards, witnesses. He has told them not to interfere, no matter what. He is not wearing the silks of a champion or the flashy clothes of a celebrity. He is wearing a simple, gray sweatsuit, the uniform of a working man. He looks out the window, his expression unreadable. He is watching the town slide by, the tired buildings, the curious faces peeking from behind curtains. The car slows. It pulls to a stop directly in front of the diner. For a long moment, nothing happens. The engine is cut. The silence that follows is deafening. Inside the diner, the few patrons freeze. The waitress drops her rag. The owner, standing behind the counter, feels a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He had heard the rumors. He had dismissed them. Arrogance. Fantasy. But the car is real. The door of the car opens. A leg emerges. A thick, muscular leg in a gray sweatpant, ending in a simple athletic shoe. Then the rest of him. The boxer unfolds himself from the car. He stands up to his full height on the sidewalk. He seems to draw all the light of the late afternoon sun into himself. He is a figure of impossible density and presence. He takes a moment. He looks at the diner. He looks at the sign. His eyes do not register anger or indignation or fear. They register information. He is simply reading it, processing it. The crowd that has gathered on the street, a small collection of townspeople drawn by the rumor and the sight of the expensive car, is utterly silent. They are holding their breath. They are waiting for the explosion. This is the moment, the culmination of the boast, the article, the history, the hate. He takes a step toward the door. The final ritual before the confrontation is an internal one. For the owner, it is a frantic, panicked cycle of thoughts. He can't come in here. The sign is clear. I have the right. This is my place. But look at him. What do I do? What do I say? His heart is a frantic drum against his ribs. His hands, resting on the counter, are slick with sweat. His entire being is a cocktail of fear and indignant rage. He is a cornered animal. For the boxer, the ritual is silence. He closes his eyes for a single, brief second. In that second, he is not the heavyweight champion of the world. He is not the myth. He is a man connecting with a principle, the principle of courage, the principle of peace. He is emptying himself of pride, of anger, of the instinct for violence that has made him a rich and famous man. He is preparing to wield a different kind of power, a power his opponent has never seen and cannot possibly understand. He opens his eyes. He is calm. He is ready. He reaches for the door. The pivotal action is not a punch. It begins with the sound of a small bell, a cheerful, tinkling sound that is grotesquely out of place in the suffocating tension of the room. It is the bell attached to the diner door. The boxer steps inside. The door swings shut behind him, and the bell tinkles again, a final, tinny echo. And then silence. A silence so profound, so absolute, it feels like a physical thing. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock, the very breathing of the people in the room. It has all been swallowed by this vast, sudden quiet. The boxer stands just inside the door, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. He is not scanning for threats. He is not posturing. He is simply present. The owner stands frozen behind the counter. His face is pale. His mouth is a thin, hard line. His mind is screaming, but no sound comes out. This was not supposed to happen. This was an abstraction, a story in a newspaper. It was not supposed to be a 5'10" block of granite and legend standing 3 feet from his pie case. The boxer takes a slow, deliberate step forward. The floorboards creak under his weight. The sound is unnaturally loud in the stillness. Another step. He's moving toward the counter. He's not walking like a fighter. There is no swagger. His movements are economical, calm. He walks like a man who belongs in any room he chooses to enter. He stops at the counter, a few feet from the owner. He does not look at the owner. Not yet. His eyes drift around the room. He takes in the worn booths, the faded photographs on the wall, the cheap plastic salt and pepper shakers. He is observing, learning the space. Then his eyes finally come to rest on the owner. The owner flinches, a tiny, involuntary jerk. He feels the boxer's gaze like a physical weight. He expects a glare. He expects a snarl. He expects the prelude to violence. He gets none of it. The boxer's eyes are soft, not weak, but soft. They are filled with a strange, unnerving placidity, a deep, quiet calm that is more disarming than any threat. The seconds stretch into an eternity. The owner's mind is racing, searching for the script. What is he supposed to say? Get out? We don't serve you? The words feel flimsy, ridiculous in the face of this man. They are words for a concept, not for this reality. The boxer's lips part. He is going to speak. The entire room braces itself. His voice, when it comes, is shockingly quiet. It is low, raspy, and devoid of aggression. "Excuse me," he says. The owner blinks. "I'd like a glass of water, please." The shocking outcome is not a man on the floor. It is the utter collapse of a worldview, a glass of water. Of all the things the owner had prepared for, a threat, an argument, a fist, this was not one of them. The request is so simple, so mundane, so human. It bypasses all his defenses. How do you refuse a thirsty man a glass of water? How do you apply the grand, abstract hatred of a sign to a request so humble? The owner is speechless. He stares at the boxer, his mind a complete blank. The gears of his prejudice have seized. The well-worn paths of his anger lead nowhere. He sees the man who has conquered the world's most violent athletes ask for a glass of water with the politeness of a child. He sees a man who could shatter every bone in his body, who could reduce his diner to splinters, stand before him with a quiet humility that is more powerful than any rage. The silence stretches. The owner's mouth opens and closes, but no sound emerges. He looks like a fish out of water, gasping in an alien atmosphere. The boxer does not repeat his request. He does not press. He simply waits. He waits, his calm gaze fixed on the owner. It is not a stare down. It is an invitation to be a decent human being. In that moment, the sign in the window shatters. Not the physical plaque, but the idea of it. It is revealed for what it is, a flimsy, pathetic shield against a world the owner does not understand. A piece of wood and paint that has no power over a man who refuses to acknowledge its authority. The humiliation is profound, but it is not the humiliation of being physically dominated. It is the deeper, more searing humiliation of being shown your own pettiness, your own fear, your own profound and monumental foolishness. The owner's face, which was pale with fear, begins to turn red. a deep, blotchy flush of shame. He looks down at his own hands on the counter. He looks at the clean rag the waitress dropped. He looks anywhere but at the boxer. He is a king whose castle has just been revealed to be a sandcastle, and the tide is coming in. Without a word, he turns. He fumbles for a glass under the counter, his hands shaking slightly. He pulls it out. He turns to the tap. He fills it with water. The sound of the running water is the only sound in the universe. He places the glass of water on the counter in front of the boxer. It is a surrender. The collective disbelief is a tangible force. The old-timers in the booths are staring, their mouths slightly agape. They have known the owner their whole lives. They have known his father. They have accepted the sign as a fact of life, like the sunrise. They have just witnessed a law of their universe being repealed. The waitress stands by the kitchen door, her hand over her mouth. Tears are welling in her eyes, though she is not sure why. Is it relief? Is it shock? Is it the sheer, overwhelming humanity of the moment? The crowd outside, peering through the windows, murmurs. They cannot hear what was said. They can only see the tableau, the champion at the counter, the owner serving him a glass. The impossible has happened. The boxer does not drink the water immediately. He looks at the glass. He looks back at the owner, who is still staring at the counter, unable to meet his eyes. Now, the lesson begins. The boxer leans forward slightly, his voice still a low, confidential murmur, meant only for the owner. "Thank you," he says. The owner gives a short, jerky nod. "You were expecting someone else, weren't you?" The boxer continues, his voice gentle. "You were expecting the monster, the animal from the TV." The owner remains silent, but his shoulders slump. It is a confession. "That sign on your door," the boxer says, gesturing with a slight nod of his head. "That's for him, for the monster. It's a cage you built because you're afraid of him." He pauses, letting the words sink in. "But I didn't come here today as the monster. I came here as a man who was thirsty." He picks up the glass of water. He looks at it, then back at the owner. "Hate," he says, his voice now taking on the philosophical tone of his interviews, "is a heavy thing to carry. You've been carrying it for a long time. Your father gave it to you, but it's not his anymore. It's yours, and it's making you weak." The owner finally looks up. His eyes are filled with a confusion so deep, it looks like pain. "Weak?" he croaks, the words scraping his throat. "I'm not weak." "Aren't you?" the boxer asks, his gaze unflinching, but still without malice. "You were afraid of me before I even walked in. You're afraid of people you've never even met. You've built your whole life around that fear. You've put up walls. You've locked yourself inside this room with your sign. Does that feel strong to you?" The boxer takes a small sip of the water. "Power," he says, placing the glass back down. "Real power. It's not about who you can keep out. It's about who you can let in. It's not about breaking things. It's about building them. You thought my strength was in my fists. You were wrong. My strength is in knowing when not to use them." The owner is unraveling. Every word is a thread being pulled from the tapestry of his identity. The anger, the pride, the inherited hate. It is all coming apart, revealing the small, frightened man underneath. I don't understand," he stammers. You could have destroyed this place, destroyed me." "Why?" the boxer asks, a genuine question. "To prove what? That I'm strong? Everyone already knows I'm strong. To prove you're wrong? A man like you can't be forced to see the truth. You have to choose to open your own eyes." He pushes the glass of water gently back toward the owner. "I don't need this," he says. "I just needed to see if you would give it to me. To see the man behind the sign." He looks at the owner, and for the first time, a flicker of a smile touches his lips. It is a sad, knowing smile. "The choice is yours," he says. "You can keep your cage, or you can walk out." The owner stares at the glass of water. A single drop of condensation traces a path down its side, like a tear. He looks at the boxer, at this man who has shown him a kind of strength he never knew existed, a strength found in restraint, in humility, in peace. He looks past the boxer, toward the front window, at the dark wood of the plaque, at the 4 ugly words that have defined his life. The challenger accepts the lesson. His shoulders, which have been hunched in a defensive crouch, finally relax. A long, shuddering breath escapes him. It is the sound of a lifetime of tension being released. He begins, his voice thick with emotion. He has to stop, to swallow. I'm sorry. It is a small, quiet apology, but it carries the weight of generations. It is an apology to the man in front of him. It is an apology to the world. It is an apology to himself. The boxer simply nods. He has done what he came to do. He turns and walks toward the door. The patrons in the booths watch him go, their faces a mixture of awe and reverence. As his hand touches the door, the owner's voice calls out, stronger now. Wait. The boxer stops, his back still to the room. The owner walks out from behind the counter. He moves with a new purpose. He walks to the front window, he reaches up. His hands, which had been shaking, are now steady. He fumbles with the latch, holding the wooden plaque in place. It's stiff from years of disuse. He struggles with it for a moment. Then, with a sharp crack, it comes free. He holds the sign in his hands. He looks at it, really looks at it, as if for the first time. He sees the ugly pride in the carved letters. He feels the dead weight of the lie he has been living. He turns and walks back toward the boxer. He holds out the sign. The boxer turns to face him. He looks at the sign, then at the owner's face. He shakes his head. It's not mine, he says. It's yours. You do what you want with it. And with that, he opens the door, the little bell tinkling one last time, and steps out into the late afternoon light. The event becomes legend almost immediately. Before the boxer's car was even at the edge of town, the story was already taking shape. It was told by the patrons in the diner, by the waitress, by the people who watched from the street. It was passed over the phone lines, from house to house, from town to town. Like all legends, it grew and changed with each telling. In some versions, the boxer stared the owner down until he broke into tears. In others, he delivered a long, thundering speech that shook the very foundations of the diner. In the most exaggerated tellings, he shattered the sign with a single contemptuous glare. But the core of the story, the truth of it, always remained. The most dangerous man on the planet had walked into a citadel of hate and conquered it with a request for a glass of water. He had defeated his enemy not by destroying him, but by teaching him. The long-term impact was profound and undeniable. The day after the encounter, the owner did not open the diner. He was seen leaving his house in the morning with a wooden plaque under his arm. He walked to the town dump. He threw it onto the pile of refuse, and he walked away without looking back. When he reopened the diner a day later, it was different. The space where the sign had hung left a clean rectangle on the glass, a ghost of the past. But the change was more than that. The air inside felt lighter. The owner was a changed man. The sourness was gone from his face, replaced by a quiet, somber thoughtfulness. He was polite to his customers. He started talking to people he had ignored for years. A few weeks later, a family he would have once turned away stopped in for lunch. He served them himself, with a nervous but genuine smile. The town watched. And the town learned. The diner slowly became a different kind of institution, not a monument to exclusion, but a quiet testament to the possibility of change. The owner never spoke of what happened that day, not in detail. If anyone asked, he would just shake his head and say, "A man taught me a lesson." Years later, a journalist tracked down the owner for a follow-up story on the now famous anecdote. The owner, now an old man with kind eyes, agreed to speak. "I spent my whole life being proud of a cage," he told the journalist. "I thought it was my castle. He came in, and he didn't even rattle the bars. He just showed me the door was unlocked. He showed me I was my own prisoner. How do you fight a man like that? You don't. You join him. You walk out into the sun." The explicit moral of the story is not about fighting. It is about the nature of true strength. We are often taught that power is domination. That strength is the ability to impose your will on others, to break what stands in your way. We celebrate the knockout punch, the decisive victory, the vanquishing of our enemies. But this story teaches a deeper, more difficult truth. True strength is restraint. It is the mastery of one's own worst impulses. It is the courage to meet hatred not with more hatred, but with a radical, disarming humanity. It is the wisdom to understand that you cannot destroy an idea with your fists. You can only replace it with a better one. The boxer didn't need to throw a punch. His very presence, guided by a profound principle, was the blow. He demonstrated that the greatest power lies not in the ability to destroy an enemy, but in the ability to transform one into a friend. He showed that the most formidable weapon in any arsenal is a simple, honest appeal to the shared humanity that resides in all of us, even in the darkest, most fortified hearts. What do you do when a sign on a door is a declaration of war? You show up not as a soldier, but as a man, and you ask for a glass of water.